Have you ever had a moment that changed everything? A single question that altered the course of your entire life? If you've ever wondered whether true love still exists in this chaotic world, this story might just restore your faith. Before we dive in, if you're enjoying this kind of content, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart and soul. It was raining the night she showed up at my door. Not the gentle, romantic kind of rain that falls in movies, but the merciless downpour that soaks through every layer of clothing and chills you to the bone. I hadn't seen Eliza in almost 2 years, not since she'd left for graduate school across the country with a promise to keep in touch that had gradually faded into silence. Yet there she stood on my doorstep at 2 a.m., drenched and shivering, her usually perfect auburn hair plastered to her face, mascara running down her cheeks in dark rivulets. Whether from rain or tears, I couldn't tell. "James," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the storm. I didn't know where else to go. I should have asked questions. I should have demanded explanations for her sudden appearance after all this time. Instead, I simply stepped aside and let her in, watching as she dripped water onto my hardwood floor. The silence between us felt heavy with unspoken words, with the weight of our shared history and the mystery of our time apart. "You're soaked," I said finally, stating the obvious because I didn't know what else to say. "Let me get you a towel and some dry clothes." When I returned with an old t-shirt of mine and a pair of sweatpants, she had moved from the entryway to stand by the window, staring out at the storm as if searching for answers in the darkness. The soft lamplight caught the curve of her profile, and for a moment, I was transported back to all those nights we'd spent together before life had pulled us in different directions. "Thank you," she said, taking the clothes without meeting my eyes. "I'm sorry for showing up like this. I know it's been a long time." 2 years, 1 month, and 16 days, I replied, immediately regretting the precision that revealed just how much I'd counted every day of her absence. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "You always were good with numbers." She disappeared into the bathroom to change, and I busied myself making tea, trying to ignore the questions swirling in my mind. What had brought her back? Why tonight? Why here? When she emerged wearing my clothes that hung loosely on her slender frame, something inside me ached with a familiar longing I'd tried so hard to bury. We sat across from each other at my small kitchen table, steam rising from our mugs, creating a fragile barrier between us. She wrapped her hands around her cup as if desperate for warmth, and I noticed a faint tremor in her fingers. "I left the program," she said abruptly, breaking the silence. 3 months ago. I've been staying with my sister in Chicago, trying to figure out what to do next." I nodded, waiting for her to continue, to explain why that path had led her to my door in the middle of the night. "I thought I wanted it so badly," she continued, her voice hollow. "The prestigious degree, the career opportunities. I thought it was worth everything I gave up." Her eyes finally met mine, and the pain I saw there made my chest tighten. "But I was wrong, James. So wrong." The rain continued its relentless assault outside, creating a soundtrack to our reunion that felt both melancholic and strangely appropriate. I had imagined this moment countless times over the past 2 years, what I would say if I ever saw her again, how I would act. In my imagination, I was always cool and distant, showing her that I had moved on. But sitting across from her now, all those practiced scenarios evaporated like the steam from our tea. "What happened?" I asked simply. She took a deep breath, her shoulders rising and falling with the effort. "Everything I thought I wanted turned out to be empty. The people, the pressure, the constant competition. I was good at it, you know. Top of my class. But every achievement just felt hollow." She paused, tracing the rim of her mug with her fingertip. "And then my dad got sick." I straightened in my chair. Her father had always been a force of nature, a man who seemed indestructible. "Is he?" "He's okay now," she said quickly. "Heart attack. But it was close, and I couldn't even come home right away because of finals. By the time I got there, he was already recovering, but something in me just broke. All these important things were happening, life and death things, and I was across the country chasing something that didn't even make me happy. The confession hung in the air between us. I wanted to reach across the table and take her hand, but I held back, unsure of where we stood, of what she wanted from me. "I'm sorry about your dad," I said. "And about the program not working out." She shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "That's the thing, James. I'm not sorry about the program. I'm sorry about everything else. I'm sorry I convinced myself that my career was more important than." She trailed off, but her eyes held mine, finishing the sentence without words. "More important than us." Outside, a crack of thunder shook the windows, making us both jump. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. The storm was directly overhead now, mirroring the turbulence I felt inside. "It's late," I said, suddenly aware of the time. "You must be exhausted." She nodded, the weariness evident in every line of her body. "I should have called first. I was driving through town on my way back from an interview in Portland, and the storm hit, and suddenly I was turning onto your street without even thinking about it." "An interview?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral, wondering if this was just a brief stopover on her way to another new life that didn't include me. "Yeah," she said, looking down at her hands. "A teaching position at the community college. It's not prestigious, not what I was training for, but it's here. In this town." The implication of her words sent a jolt through me. She was considering moving back. But what did that mean for us? For me? "You should get some rest," I said, standing up and taking our mugs to the sink, needing a moment to process this information. "We can talk more in the morning." She stood too, hovering uncertainly in the middle of my kitchen. "I can take the couch," she offered. I turned to face her, suddenly aware of how small my apartment was, how close she was standing. "Don't be ridiculous. You take the bed. I'll take the couch." A flash of something, disappointment? Relief? Crossed her face. "Are you sure?" "Of course," I said, already moving to the linen closet to get extra blankets for myself. I showed her to my bedroom, a space she had once known as well as her own. It felt strange watching her step tentatively into the room, as if she were a guest rather than someone who had once left her clothes in my dresser and her toothbrush in my bathroom. "Not much has changed," she observed, looking around at the familiar furniture, the same blue comforter, the stack of books on the nightstand. "Some things don't," I replied, the words carrying more weight than I intended. She turned to face me, standing in the doorway. For a moment, we just looked at each other, the years between us both a vast chasm and a paper-thin barrier. I could see the exhaustion in her eyes, but also something else, a question, a hope, a fear. "Good night, James," she said finally, her voice soft. "Good night, Eliza," I responded, pulling the door closed between us. I made up the couch and lay down, listening to the storm and the occasional creak of floorboards as she moved around in my bedroom. Sleep seemed impossible with her so close yet so distant, with so many questions unanswered. I stared at the ceiling, replaying our conversation, trying to decipher what it all meant. I must have dozed off eventually, because I woke with a start to find the apartment quiet, the storm having moved on, leaving only a gentle patter of rain against the windows. The digital clock on my cable box read 4:17 a.m. I lay still, trying to determine what had woken me, when I heard it, the soft click of my bedroom door opening, followed by the whisper of bare feet on hardwood. She appeared at the edge of the living room, a silhouette in my oversized t-shirt, her hair a tousled cloud around her shoulders. I sat up, instantly alert. "Eliza? Is everything okay?" She took a step closer, then another, until she was standing before me, illuminated only by the faint glow of streetlights filtering through the curtains. "I can't sleep," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I keep thinking about everything, about us." My heart hammered against my ribs. "What about us?" She sat down on the edge of the couch, careful to maintain a small distance between us. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed? If I'd chosen differently? The question I'd tortured myself with for 2 years, now hanging in the air between us. Sometimes, I admitted, the word inadequate for the countless hours I'd spent imagining alternate versions of our lives. I made a mistake, James, she said, her voice breaking. The biggest mistake of my life. And I don't know if it's too late to fix it, or if you even want to, but I had to come back. I had to see you. In the dim light, I could see tears glistening in her eyes. Without thinking, I reached out and brushed one away as it fell down her cheek. The simple contact sent electricity through my fingertips. Why now? I asked, needing to understand. After all this time? She leaned slightly into my touch, her eyes closing briefly. Because I finally stopped running. From what I really want. From what scares me. She opened her eyes, meeting mine with newfound determination. From how much I love you. Still. Always. The words I had longed to hear, yet now that she'd spoken them, I found myself frozen, caught between hope and fear. We had been here before, making promises, planning a future, only for it all to fall apart when a better opportunity came along for her. Eliza, I began, not even sure what I wanted to say. It's been 2 years. A lot has changed. Have your feelings changed? She asked directly, vulnerability raw in her voice. Had they? I had dated other women, had tried to move on, had told myself I was over her. But sitting here now, with her so close I could smell the familiar scent of her skin mingled with my shampoo, I couldn't lie, not to her, not to myself. No, I admitted. But that doesn't mean this is a good idea. You left once before. What's to stop you from leaving again when something better comes along? She flinched as if I'd struck her, but she didn't retreat. I deserve that, she acknowledged. But James, there is nothing better. I learned that the hard way. Everything I thought I wanted paled in comparison to what I gave up. To you. To us. The sincerity in her voice was unmistakable, but 2 years of heartache had taught me caution. And this teaching job? What if you don't get it? What then? Then I find something else here, she said without hesitation. I'm not leaving again, James. Not unless you tell me to go. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her declaration settling between us. Outside, the rain had stopped completely, and the first hints of dawn were beginning to lighten the sky. I'm scared, I admitted finally. Scared of feeling that way again when you left. I don't know if I could survive it a second time. She reached for my hand, her fingers intertwining with mine in a gesture so familiar it made my chest ache. I'm scared too, she whispered. Scared you won't forgive me. Scared it's too late. But I'm more scared of never trying, of never knowing if we could have found our way back to each other. Her words resonated with something deep inside me, with the part of me that had never stopped hoping, despite my best efforts to move on. I looked down at our joined hands, at how perfectly they still fit together. James, she said softly, drawing my gaze back to her face. Is there room in your bed? The question hung in the air between us, loaded with meaning beyond the simple words. This wasn't just about tonight, about physical comfort or proximity. It was about second chances, about trust, about the possibility of a future together. I took a deep breath, knowing my answer would change everything. Yes, I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. But do you want to stay with me forever? Her eyes widened, understanding the true question beneath my words. A smile broke across her face, radiant even in the dim light, as tears spilled freely down her cheeks. Yes, she whispered, the single word carrying the weight of 1,000 promises. Forever. I pulled her into my arms then, holding her against my chest as if I could somehow merge our 2 separate journeys back into one shared path. Her tears dampened my shirt, and I realized I was crying too, releasing 2 years of grief and longing and anger and hope. "I love you," she murmured against my neck. I never stopped, not for a single day. "I love you too," I replied, the words both a confession and a homecoming. We stayed that way until the first rays of sunlight began to filter through the curtains, casting the room in a golden glow that felt like a blessing, like the universe itself approving of our reunion. When we finally moved to the bedroom, it wasn't about passion or physical desire, but about healing the distance between us, about lying side by side as the new day dawned, making plans and promises in whispered voices. She fell asleep with her head on my chest, her breathing deep and even, her body relaxed in a way it hadn't been when she'd first appeared at my door. I stayed awake a little longer, watching the sunlight strengthen, feeling the steady beat of her heart against mine. Second chances are rare in this life. Most of the time, when something breaks, it stays broken, or gets discarded and replaced. But sometimes, if you're very lucky, what's broken can be mended, can become stronger at the damaged places, can be transformed into something new yet familiar, something that carries the scars of the past but isn't defined by them. As I drifted off to sleep with Eliza in my arms, I knew we had a lot to figure out, a lot to rebuild. Trust doesn't return overnight, and 2 years of separate lives couldn't be bridged in a single conversation. But we had taken the first step, had chosen each other despite the risks, had decided that what we could build together was worth fighting for. And sometimes, that's all it takes, the courage to ask a question, and the courage to answer it honestly. Is there room in your bed? Do you want to stay with me forever? 2 simple questions that changed everything. 6 months later, I asked her another question, down on one knee with a ring that had taken me 3 months to save for. Her answer was the same, yes, forever, but this time, there were no tears, only laughter and joy and the certainty that comes from choosing each other every day, from building a love that's stronger for having been broken and mended. They say that true love stories never have endings, and I believe that's true. Eliza and I are still writing ours, page by page, day by day. There have been challenges and disagreements, moments of doubt and fear, but also moments of such perfect happiness that they seem almost unreal. The night she showed up at my door in the rain wasn't the beginning of our story, but it wasn't the end either. It was a turning point, a moment when 2 paths that had diverged found their way back to each other. And in that convergence, we discovered something profound, that sometimes, the longest journey leads you right back home, to the place where you always belonged. So if you're out there wondering if second chances exist, if lost love can be found again, if the mistakes of the past can be forgiven, the answer is yes. It takes courage and honesty and the willingness to be vulnerable. It takes the strength to ask difficult questions and the bravery to answer them truthfully. But when you find that person who feels like home, who makes you want to be better, who loves you not despite your flaws but with them, hold on tight. Because that kind of love is worth fighting for, worth waiting for, worth coming home to. Forever isn't just a word. It's a choice we make every day. And it's the easiest choice I've ever made. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more content that explores the depths of human connection and the power of second chances. Share your own stories of love and redemption in the comments below, because every story matters, and every voice deserves to be heard.